Good morning, dads in business. Happy Monday. Notice new title. No more Monday motivation, which I thought was good for a second, but then totally hated every time I said it. So now we're looking at the member spotlight, which I like way more. And I think that the value is going to increase and be so much better understanding each other, getting to know each other, our successes, our failures, our successes in dads and our failures in dads. So today is a different episode. We're doing something a little bit different. Bennett reached out to me this week and I thought it was a fantastic idea. He says, let's flip the script. Let's talk about you. I was like, okay. And I'm interested to see what kind of questions are going to come my way because I got a sketchy past. So we'll see how this goes. Welcome back to the show, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. It's great to be here again, 2 weeks in a row. Last week was your turn to interview me, which was cool. I've listened to so many podcasts over the years. It was cool to actually be on one, and there's something about having the loose framework of a podcast where we're trying to be somewhat entertaining, somewhat interesting, so we're keeping it on track, but yet no commercial breaks or no nothing we have to answer to other than just trying to make it interesting. So
Yep.
So that was really fun last week. It was good to be on the other side of it, and now I'm glad that I get to interview you today.
So I'm a little nervous, not gonna lie.
Well, I did, so when I was doing my research, I did, I looked through all the, the criminal records and the judicial records and the this and that. The good news is I didn't find anything.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say they do exist. They do exist.
I'm sure we've all got our past, but so I'm going to take over here. So as Glenn mentioned, this is the Dads in Business podcast, the member spotlight. We've been the last 5 or 6 weeks, we've been spotlighting the administrators and the people that behind the scenes run the group of Dads in Business, gets to the point where we have to honor you as someone who's first of all put together a great podcast. I mean, just looking at all the bells and whistles on the screen, it looks great. So welcome to the Dads in Business member spotlight, Glenn. How are you feeling on a Monday morning?
On a Monday morning, I had my kids this weekend. We had a fantastic time. We did on Saturday. It was a little cold. Normally, I'm in for a bike ride. We're heading out. We're doing something different. That sort of thing. And then this weekend, I just decided that because we're massive Mario Party fans. If you have never played Mario Party on this Nintendo Switch, fantastic. So the kids were super excited. A brand new Mario Party dropped last week. So I said, all right, girls, let's go to the store. Let's get, a bunch of snacks and let's, just stay in all day. We watched movies. So we did Mario Party. I introduced them to the Star Wars saga. We did New Hope.
Nice.
So they were bored and then fun, bored, then fun. And then at the end, they got into it a little bit, which was good. I know they'll remember it. It's not something that's on the top of the list. So it's what we did on Saturday and Sunday. Yeah. We played another game called Overcooked, which again we stayed aside and we just chilled. It was a lot. It was good. I had a good week. I'm happy. I always like it. Really feel like awesome. Re-energized.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about last week how at this point just hanging out with the kids on a weekend is probably as good as it gets. Speaking of bike rides, we did on Saturday. It was a little chilly, but we went. In West Hartford, they just completed the Trout Brook Trail. Mm-hmm. And I've been driving by it all summer as they've been doing construction on it. So we did a bike ride all the way from University of Hartford campus or the Little League field all the way down to the Gastro Park in West Hartford. So if you know that,
I did.
That's about
we did an event there.
We did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's about a 4-mile bike ride and it's all back roads as the crow flies straight down. So we did do a bike ride ourselves this weekend. And and then yesterday I spent doing yard work in a good way. I've got had to close my garden up for the weekend, for the year.
Yep.
And some other stuff. So to get it ready for when the guys come to really clean up the yard with all the leaves and stuff, I kind of prepped it. So that was my weekend as well. So great. So I'm glad we had some good dad weekends. And and we do we have played Mario Party in the past.
Oh my God, I
And
love it.
it led to too many fights. But I think my daughter's skill level is now better that she can hang, and maybe we won't fight as much next time we pop in Mario Party.
All right, so don't play Overcooked. If there's fights, don't play Overcooked, man, because it was pretty tense. Why are you not chopping? Where's the rice? It was nuts.
Yeah. So we'll have to revisit that in our household. So coming off the weekend, now we're into Monday, and it's great to, get up early and get this going. So let's talk about you, Glenn. As we mentioned last week on the podcast, you and I become really good friends the last 6 months or so.
We have,
started
a very valuable friendship for me.
Yeah, started with Dads in Business. Obviously I was honored to help you sell your home and get that part of your life, checked and done
behind me.
And and then we spent a great day at Lake Compounds over the summer. So it's a perfect example of what the power of Dads in Business. And one of those times we were hanging out, we got into your, we were sharing growing up stories a little bit. So I know you grew up in New Haven.
I did.
And I know, your dad was around, but maybe I don't know how much you want to get into the relationship was, but I am just curious, what was your life kind of growing up in New Haven? Kind of give me the summary and, just give me the vibe of what it was like growing up in New Haven.
Now, my dad and my relationship, I'm going to just caveat, I'm just going to get this out. It was a spotty relationship. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Growing up in New Haven, I grew up very, very poor. It was a difficult time for my parents to provide. It was, it in what I see today is very much a mirror of what I saw when I was a kid.
Okay.
And so I have this empathy for people currently for that reason. I was not a very good kid. I was not a very good kid in middle school. Like elementary school, I was a kid. Everybody's good in elementary, super innocent. Once I got to middle school, it was difficult. It was a difficult thing. It was hard for me to stay out of the criminal side of things.
Okay.
I was taken advantage of by local, say local gangs, because that's really the title, but it was just a bunch of people just being stupid. There's a lot of drugs being sold. So we're talking late 80s, early 90s. It was the culture. So I got mixed up in that. Growing up, I was on the street. When in that time, your mom said go outside and play. So that's what I did. And although I had spouts of great, good kid fun, which I did, going around looking for snakes, was one of my things. My brother used to, for some reason, decided to collect the snakes, capture them, cage them, and sell them to the local neighbors. So that was a fun visit.
Yeah.
But I also got mixed up in the bad things. I was a lookout for drug dealers.
Wow.
And I remember the day I kind of stopped because it really put the fear of God into me. We were there, and back in the day, it was a Mac 11 was the gun of choice for everybody. So this person, Mac 11s are not very accurate. So this person drove by and sprayed the entire block. I was there. I jumped. It's flying over my head. I believe that was the day I was like, okay, this is a little bit more. I mean, he was. I'm not making. I think he was even paying me with candy or something. It was just there was not really anything in it. I was just wanted to be part of something. And that was really kind of the theme of me growing up between 10 and 15 years old. Even to the point where I stole a car. It was kind of crazy.
Well, and that's really brave of you to share that. So, we talk about, every generation talks about, looks at the past with rose colored glasses. And, we hear all the time about, back in our day, we left in the morning, our parents didn't know where we were. And, I think that's a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it does create autonomous kids. But if you're 8 years old and you're out and you see a 13-year-old doing something, you may mirror that, or you may be, interested in that. And, you're going to grow up a lot faster. And if you do, what you learn in self-reliance, you may also pick up by, getting into some unsavory, crowds and stuff. And that can happen to anyone, especially, like you said, living in an urban environment. So it sounds like you had, it was all fun and games until there was real danger, right? Is that?
Hey, you said it perfectly. It was all fun and games until the bullets were flying over your head, and then I was like, I probably should not be here.
Okay. And how old were you when that happened?
Obviously, it was I would say about, I feel like a 14, 13. I was young.
Okay.
I was just, I wasn't actually slinging. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm trying to remember if I ever had any, because I feel like, no, it's been so long ago. I don't think so. I don't think I've ever held anything.
Right.
So,
okay.
And because I was kind of smart enough to not put myself in that position, but it was enough that like still I wanted to be part of that group. I think it was really mainly I wanted to be part of, not having the male figure really in my life at that time. And it was because my dad was working a lot. You know what I mean? So it was hard. It was just hard.
Yes. So what was it? Yeah. So that happened. You had an actual experience where you felt the danger, you felt how real it could be. But you still had to go, turn and continue your schooling and things. So, what was it in your makeup or in your upbringing that, even though you probably knew it was wrong and you were doing some things that were not legal, but there was something in you that kept you from completely going, to the dark side, for lack, to bring up a Star Wars reference. So what was it about was it an internal dialogue? Did you have teachers that mentors? Like, what was it after that moment that got you not only to stop doing the criminal stuff, but also to get back, to just getting through school and not dropping out, that kind of thing? What was it? Was there something else going on? Did you have a mentor or anything?
So yes. So I think that the middle school, which I went to, it was called Fairhaven Middle School. I think that the people or the counselors there recognized a spark of potential in me, and they put me in this program called Project Pride. And that was really what pulled me out of initially. I was still an asshole. Don't get me wrong. Still doing shit that was messing up my mom. I'm trying to work things. I'm over here, trying to be a criminal. And but Project Pride, like, I took up a lot of my time, and we did a lot of what's called camping trips. And we went up to Springfield. Springfield's got a college, and they got a ropes course there. And we did a lot of camping there. We did a lot of walking around. This is nature. It was right on the Quinnipiac River. So we were able to, and then for me, it was just about getting out of class. So
yeah,
a lot of it was him saying there's more to life than the bullshit that you're dealing with in your neighborhood. There's more to life than getting involved. There's more to life than stealing cars. Because like I said, I stole cars. It was crazy. I was a little kid riding around in a car, crashed it into my neighbor's car, by the way. So mom being Italian, I was whooped that day. But anyway, the point is I'm saying is that Project Pride took me out, and it put me in a different mindset. And I started to realize that there's more to life, and there's a future that I have to start to build. And again, it wasn't like a crazy, because once I get to high school, that changed a lot. But I would say Project Pride in middle school, one of the greatest programs I think I've ever been a part of, really like gave me that nudge to go the correct way.
That's great. So it's you there was a community related activity that you were able to collect that was a good influence, and you felt a sense of belonging as well, and you made friends, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, met my first real girlfriend. I've had girlfriends, cool. But that camping trip was the time.
Okay. All right. We'll skip over the details of what may or may
not. No, I don't want to talk about it, but no.
But okay, so you got into a program that was a good influence, and you get to high school. Now, what did you do after high school? Because I know you had some military experience. Did you go right into the military? Did you go to college?
I did not.
If you want to share anything from your high school years that's relevant to maturing and growing up, feel free to do so. But I am curious, what you did after high school as well.
Yep. So essentially, first, no military experience. I did try. I wanted to join the Navy. I have a condition or a possible condition. I don't really know what it is. Like it's called malignant hyperthermia. And if I were to go under anesthesia in the normal traditional way, my temperature would rise and possible death. So there's a way and a procedure that needs to be followed before I be put under anesthesia. I've never been put, never been tried, so we don't know. I I remember, so let me reverse. I went to a high school called Sound Maritime, and the thing about Sound Maritime High School is that you actually had to apply. And from Project Pride to my last sixth, seventh, eighth grade, I had to get good grades. So in my beginning of eighth grade, I really put a lot of effort into getting into that school because what attracted to me was they only had 4 classes a day. What I didn't know is the first class is 2 hours long. So
Okay.
that was a rough one. But the other cool part about Sound Maritime is that if you had shop class, for example, the rest of your days classes were canceled and you jumped in a sailboat and you just sailed for the rest of the afternoon. Independently, not with a group. We just all grabbed sailboats. There's a bunch of what's called Fairhaven Sharpies, which was the traditional oyster boats that they used on the Quinnipiac River, and we sailed those around, and it was good.
And that
Um,
was high school, or was
that
that
was
was
high
college?
school. No, yeah,
Okay.
that was high school, and it was a very cool high school. And then what had happened is that even though I was slightly, I got the wrong screen. I'm sorry. Even though I was slightly sort of in trouble in a sense in my freshman junior year, I had teachers that grabbed me and said, "Hey, you're a lot smarter than the bullshit you're putting going through."
Right.
And I kind of took that. And then there was one thing that really triggered me. It was a public school. None of us had to pay for it, but there was one student in the school. His name's Eric Barone. You might actually know him, but he was a cameraman at ESPN, still is. Well, no, I think he's in charge of something major at ESPN now. He threw a fit in the middle of the class, and he was so pissed. And everybody was like, "What is your problem?" Turns out he actually paid for the privilege to go to that school, and the rest of us were getting it free, and we were all acting like assholes. And he kind of said, "This is one of the most amazing schools he's ever been to. What the fuck are you guys doing?"
Yeah.
And that was it, man. That was the time plus everything else and all the other influences that I said I want to do better. I want to be something else, and I wanted to be a ship captain.
Yeah.
That didn't turn out, but I did end up in the maritime field right after high school.
Yeah. Okay. So you had one. Yeah, that's interesting. So you had one student who was like, didn't take it for granted and saw
Mm.
the value because he was, he understood that it wasn't just something he went to for free. And so his kind of making that aware to the class, you realize, yeah, you were lucky to be there, and
Very
let's
lucky.
maybe stop screwing around a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's I want to focus on, because this is Dads in Business. I want to get to I want to fast forward a little bit to the current day, but
Yep.
what was, in the maritime field and prior to starting a business, which we're going to get to in a few minutes, there's obviously probably a 20-year gap there. So can you summarize your field? You went in, now, did you go to college, or, what happened after high school, and what was kind of your main job, kind of growing, going from, that gap of, 20 years until kind of the family started?
All right, let me do this. I'm going to go quick because I know we want to get to the business part. So here is exactly what happened. Went to high school, learned how to build boats in high school. We built a lot of boats. Moved over to a company called Vespola USA. Vespola USA builds rowing sculls. So like if you see it at the Yale buys a lot of them. A lot of colleges buy them. So that's those really thin boats that they row and race. I actually built 2 was mainly part of one and helped with another Olympic boats. 19 something anyway. Back around that time, I graduated in '94. So it was 2 years after. It's got to be '96 Olympics, maybe something like
Yeah,
that.
Atlanta. Yep. The
Yep.
Atlanta one.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There you go. So I built 2 boats for the U.S. Olympic team, which was a very proud moment. Started to get more So they use this chemical called so it's like resin, like a glue, and it started to really affect me. So I was like, maybe I should get out of here. So I moved up to Rhode Island and to Newport and lived in Newport, and was building for a company called Alden Yachts for a little while. Realized I just hated it. Hated building boats. I hated sitting there sanding things. I just didn't want to do the job. I just hated it. So I think I spent about 6 or 7 months at Alden, and then I left. Came back down to Connecticut and got hooked up into major commercial maritime stuff, dealing with ships and barges and oil and all that kind of stuff. And I was the guy that would bring the spill boom around each of the boats that would come in. That would, if they're offloading fuel, it's a law in Connecticut. They have to do that. So I did that for about 4 or 5 years, something like that.
Okay. What, just for my own information, what's a spill boom?
So a spill boom is like essentially what it is like if there's an oil spill and you see that floaty orange thing containing it in Connecticut, you have to have that as a contingency on every move. So the terminals, which is what they're called, terminals, oil terminals, would have a service. I was working for that service, and my job was to bring those out, anchor them, get them right, make sure the tide wasn't going to fuck with it, and that kind of thing. So I was licensed to pilot boats and all that stuff. So essentially what I did, I got tired of that because it was the 3 a.m.s. The 3 a.m.s sucked. Yeah. Well, see, you got to remember these barges and ships, they came whenever the hell they wanted to come.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. It was a lot. It was a lot.
So you were in Exxon Valdez prevention.
Yeah, essentially. Basically. Yeah, and then I moved out of that, and then I started
Google the Exxon Valdez if you're too young to remember that.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that distinct. That was a major deal. The other thing is that I moved out of there and I started doing what's called gauging, and then my job in gauging was to calculate the volumes inside the barge, then calculate the volume on the shore tank, all manually, by the way. And then what we would do is we have to correct it to 60 degrees, because if the shore tank was 30 degrees, which it isn't, it never is, and the barge tank fuel was 60, then what happens was we call a shortage, and you have to correct it to 60 degrees. It was a complicated formula. It took me a while. I was terrible at math, so it took me a while to figure that out. So
and all of this is what you're parking the barges. Like what are you doing to these are barges coming into New Haven Harbor?
Correct. So
okay,
essentially, like what I would do is I would go on board and I have this manual, like it's almost like a tape measure with a weight on the bottom, and my job was to drop it in, measure the amount of liquid from the bottom to the top, and then I would put some water paste on and see how much water's on the bottom. Always water, by the way. And my job was then to take a chart that was what we call the strap to the barge and strap to the tank, and then figure out how much actual barrels were in there.
Okay.
And then I would have to then correct it to 60 degrees, because when they do the transaction, if the barge sends it to the tank and there's a shortage because of temperature, then everybody has a big argument, basically. Gotcha. Yeah, I didn't get the amount I was supposed to get. So that's why they came up with the rule. Everything has to be corrected to 60 degrees. So it fixes the amount, and then that's the true amount that was set. So that was my job. It was a pain in the ass. And then after that, I started working for what's called a ships agency. And essentially, when a ship comes in, they have no representation. They have no knowledge of local area. They don't know where to get food, fuel, how to get money for the crew to be paid, shore leave, immigration paperwork, customs paperwork. It was crazy. And what my job as a ships agent was to represent their interests. So I would set all that up before they get there, hire the tugs, hire the pilots. A pilot is a person that you can't have the ship captain running a ship through Long Island Sound into New Haven because they don't understand or know the area. So you have to hire what's called a pilot. So I would hire the pilots, and that was a fun time. I really liked that because I had so much money to hand out and hire. The gifts were incredible. And then when you go on board the ship, the captain loved you too, because you did these amazing things for him. Like there's a Turkish ship that came in and they ran out of coffee. If anybody knows anything about Turkey, those guys, they need their coffee. So I brought on board, without him asking, I just brought a bunch of coffee just to tide him over. until I can get the supplies on board so they could get there. And he was
Right.
so just grateful. Every
Yeah.
ship captain is super grateful. Every time I sit down, it's 2 cartons of cigarettes and a big bottle of liquor. Every time
Yeah.
I sat down and start doing paperwork, that
Wow.
was the standard gift. You gave it to every agent, got it, and then in our office we just had just cartons of cigarettes and bottles till no end. But
Yeah.
that was a fun. And then, geez, what did I do? Oh, that's when I
Well,
went to the power plant.
yeah. So it sounds like you were in the relationship business, right? It sounds like you
Since day one.
yeah. So you learned how to get stuff done, kind of there, because what I'm noticing in starting my new business or just anything, there's whatever your field is, whatever you're doing, whether you're selling, chocolate, whether you're selling donuts, whether you're making something, there's a workflow, there's a procedure, there's a priority of what to do when, making sure that there's something important, but it's not time to do that yet, but you can't forget it when the time comes. So there's so much of that, just kind of logistics and figuring out what to do when, and figuring out what's going to make these people happy. What do they need, right? They have a job to do, but they need coffee. They need whatever it is. So sounds like you learned a lot of that kind of stuff, which can translate. In my experience, I found, that translates into any business is, the ability to kind of just figure out how to do stuff. For lack of a better word, just logistics, which I find kind of fun when I'm planning an event or something like that, kind of figuring out what to do when and prioritizing. So sounds like you learned a lot about that in that job, which I'm sure helps you today. And then you mentioned, what happened after that, or why did that end? I mean, was that a choice to end that, or what happened next?
So what had actually happened is that I actually fell back into gauging and then realized how much I hated climb, because you have to climb those tanks manually. There's no elevator. So I started hating that. But that's when I met my wife, and a lot of things have sort of changed. And I thought this has to be something else that I can do. And weirdly, out of nowhere, I got this word about a power plant that's up in Hartford. They're hiring. The money was fantastic. It was really good. The benefits were amazing. This, that. So I said, I'll give it a shot. Went up there, applied. No power plant experience, no heavy equipment experience. It was a trash to energy plant. It's the one that's in Hartford, run by CRRA at the time. I forgot what it's called now. But anyway, I went up there, got the job. Realized it was crazy good money, crazy good benefits. Like just to give you an idea of how much they really took care of their people. I was allowed in my health plan 2 free massages per month for me and anybody in my family. So that just gives you the idea of like what attracted me there. So that's what I did. Did it for 10 years. It was the most mundane, repetitive, terrible, and I hate it. But what I was doing was I was running a payloader basically, and I was just moving trash from one side to the other. Smell was horrible, but for some reason you get used to it and then you don't smell anymore. But what I did inside that cab, mostly because it was a lot of waiting for the next thing to happen for me to react, was that I really started getting into social media, and I'm watching and I'm seeing this thing emerge of social media management and digital stuff and digital ads and all that kind of stuff. So I really, anytime I was waiting, I was watching some video to learn something new, mainly focusing on social media management. And then I met a man, his name is Jack Perry. He's a local politician, owned HQ Dumpsters and Recycling, built that from scratch, one dumpster, and then recently sold it for an insane amount of money. And the thing about that was he was the first one to give me a shot. I was still working at that power plant, and I was going to do social media management as a side hustle. So I really learned a lot during that period because he allowed me to fuck up, basically, and he was okay with that. He is one of those people that, like a lot of the people in Dad's a Business group, where he feels like if you give somebody the chance, help them get there, then the value increases. It's basically you spread your wings and then you're flying. And he's the one that gave me the phrase, which I think everybody uses: baby steps, walking steps, then you run.
Okay.
So with him, I was doing the baby steps.
Okay, so this was give me a time for this. Must have been obviously post 2008, but pre-COVID as well.
Yes.
So somewhere in the 2010s, I guess.
Perfect. Exactly.
Okay. So you're doing this very well compensated job, but you're
Yeah.
very mundane. So you get into some some social media stuff as a side gig,
Yep.
and and that's what you're doing today. And of course we'll talk about that. But something happened in between, right? Something happened in between electric plant and learning social media and stuff to in between then and where we sit now as the owner of Southington. Let me get this right. Southington Digital Solutions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yep. Southington Digital Solutions. And this is a big detour that I don't think people are going to maybe be expecting. So tell us what happened in between. What was the business that you started
The cake
in
shop.
between?
So we started a cake shop. Actually, you're right. That's before Jack. So that was right. You're right. That's before. So we started Kenzie Cakes together. My wife at the time, she was working at she was in the same industry as I was. Got pregnant with got pregnant with, I think, Mackenzie or Allison. But either way, she was fired because she was pregnant.
Oh,
And we sued them, and we won, obviously, because it was a pretty cut and dry. They settled
wrong
really quick and got a
termination.
lot of money. We took that money plus money from her mother and money from me, and we all piled it into Kenzie Cakes. It was a salon, and we converted it. Uh, so naive, not realizing what it was going to be. We did that. It was a lot of money. It was a lot
Okay.
of money in there.
Okay, so let me stop you there. So you started a cake business,
Basically, a cake
Kenzie
business, and a
Cakes.
very unique one too, where you know how like you go to a grocery store and you buy a cake and you just for a birthday or whatever. What we did was create cakes from good ingredients, not bullshit ingredients. So homemade frosting, homemade cakes, and we would have that ready and be able to deliver a cake to you in 1 hour. And
Okay.
that was the coolest part. And then when we did that, we weren't getting much traction call wise. It was hard. I said, we probably need a website. So I reached out to some web developers, and the prices we were getting was outrageous. We had already poured all this money into the shop. We had zero money ready to go. So 10,000, 15,000 for an e-commerce site. We were like, oh my gosh.
Okay.
So
And just back up first, because I want to get into, I don't want to get too into the weeds of the business itself, but what was it about? So did you just feel like you needed a change? What makes someone with a steady, albeit boring job, jump into, a brick and mortar business where you're baking cakes? Like tell me, I want to know more about, or I want to let the listeners know more about how that happened, because, you found us some money. Obviously it was not your
yep.
choice to, it wasn't your wife's choice to get fired, but you came into some money, but you could have done anything, right? You could have invested in Bitcoin. You could have
No, not that time, but yeah. No,
done
I
anything.
hear what you're saying. Yeah.
So what was it? How did that happen? How did you arrive? How did that decision happen to get into the world of baking cakes?
So my wife, so once she got fired, I asked her, and we had the money in our pocket. I said, so we have this money. I was like, what do you want to do? And I actually said to her, I was like, it'd be cool is if we do Uber for cakes. And that was the initial idea. And I was going to, yeah, so I was going to rope in a bunch of bakeries. And so I've always been kind of an entrepreneur. I've always felt it. I didn't understand the feeling that I had, and I didn't know how to really put it into practice. But it wasn't until then I started like contemplating. My thought was, I want her to feel confident. I want her to have something and have that same proud feeling. But I didn't want to see her go back to work either. And my thought was, let's own a business. And this way she's flexible and she could go hang with the kids. And if things happen, it's much easier. No. Bakery was one of the hardest things we've ever done. But the point is I'm saying is that I've had that entrepreneurial spirit, and I wanted to do Uber for cakes, but she wanted to do actual brick and mortar. So I was like, oh, okay, so let's do it then. So we started creating relationships with big distributors for party supply stuff, cake stuff, and all that stuff. Excuse me. And then we sort of like went into this very blindly, not realizing how much work was actually involved. And then that we started doing that. And then back, like I said, we needed that e-commerce website. So that's where I learned. I built, fucked up, built, messed it up, built, got it right, better, did it better, more attractive. And I continuously built up the website. Then all of a sudden, one day, because I had said it, like this is unheard of to happen, but websites automatically printing to a laser printer, and I was using Google Cloud Print, which they had recently got rid of. But I was literally having the website, somebody order on the line, the order comes in, the actual design, the writing, all the details. The cake person would take that, create the cake, the product, and then put that on. This is all in an hour, by the way. Put that on the counter. We had a driver with a stickered van, and then he would come in, he'll have all the instructions already on where it goes, what time it's supposed to go, and he would go and then deliver it all within an hour. It was an amazing thing. I loved it. I think I loved the technical success more than I loved actually doing the cake part.
Yeah.
So I fell in love. I mean, I've built websites anyway, but this was a real website. Just to give you an idea how far back websites go, I was building on Joomla. So that's a long time ago.
Building on what?
Joomla.
It
was a content management system is what it was called. I never did coding because I didn't understand that. So I would always use what's called CMS, content management systems. And Joomla, I think, evolved into WordPress, and then WordPress is what I always recommend today because it's so much better than a lot of the other things. So I don't know if I answered your question right. I think I just went off on a tangent.
Yeah, because the reason I'm going back to this is because it takes a lot of guts to start a business.
Oh my gosh, it was so
now.
Scary.
Did you quit your job at the electric plant in order to do that?
No, I did not. So my schedule during that time was up at 7 a.m. We had Mackenzie. Allison hadn't quite gotten there yet. I would bring Mackenzie. I would feed Mackenzie, bring it to daycare, go to the shop, work till about 1 o'clock, come back home, have something to eat, sleep for about half an hour, get in the car, and on my plant shift was 3 to 11. So I would drive up to the plant, work at the plant, my shift. And in the meantime, on my phone, by the way, because you can do stuff on your phone by this time.
Right.
I was still doing things on a website and tweaking and editing and stuff like that while sitting in the cab. And then I would leave, go back to the shop and do dishes, clean it up, and prep for the next day, and until about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and it was a rinse repeat. Crazy.
So you were working both ends, and then your wife at the time was kind of the head baker. I mean, someone was at the shop physically baking the cakes, right? Yep. Someone's got to put the flour and stuff together.
Yep. And to her credit, she worked her tail off until she got tired of it.
Yeah.
It was hard.
And how long did it take for that business? How did you, when you started the cake business, how did you promote it, and was it profitable?
So no, for a year to 2 years, it was constantly putting money in. We ran credit cards up. It was not the optimal strategy.
Right.
We promoted it using social media. We did run a few ads here and there, which did okay. But again, this is like, I didn't fully understand. She didn't fully understand. And we probably should have had a marketing guy come in. And one of the mistakes that we made, that a lot of new businesses make now, because now that in hindsight, I see things, a lot of businesses make this massive mistake where they say, okay, X building is this, office is this, and then the supplies are this. But what they always forget is they have to have money for marketing. Simply opening the doors and not telling you got to be there with a sign. Oh my God, and then social, Facebook groups work a little bit, which is what we did, but you really got to get that marketing going. You have to come up with that strategy. And we were the exact thing that I'm talking about. We opened our doors and was like, oh yeah, people are just going to flock. This is an amazing idea. It's did not happen. Yeah.
And that's a great lesson to learn. And, you obviously, like you said, it took a lot of money just to buy, the like you said, brick and mortar, and to buy the supplies, and to buy the equipment and the machinery and all that stuff. And and I've seen this for years. You see like you said, you see a restaurant, or think of the Seinfeld episode where Babu Bot opens the restaurant and he's just standing out front like barking and trying to get people to come in.
Exactly.
And it's not magic. I mean, I go back to when I got out of college, and in the the story I shared on the podcast last week about not knowing, thinking, okay, now I got my degree, now the phone's just going to start ringing.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you've got to proactively go out and whether in that case it's marketing yourself, but in your case it's marketing the business. And yeah, I mean, it's just a good example of anything, whether you have the best pizza recipe in the world, you open up a pizza shop,
who's gonna know
who's gonna man it, who's gonna do the books. Running a business is more than just what you're passionate about.
It really is.
And learning to put processes in place and leverage and so that you can focus on, so you're, in this example, your wife could focus just on baking the cakes.
Yep.
And you could focus just on the workflow and getting the order of operations and everything.
Yep.
That didn't leave any time or money for marketing.
So, and another mistake working with family. One of the things, major mistakes that I did as I was trying to put my fingers in everything. I should have left her alone and let her do her thing, and I should have focused on the digital side and the some of the operations. Just in anything really, you have to trust the people that you have there, and that was a major mistake, which had a significant impact on the failure and my intellectual success of that business. There's something I learned only recently, is that when you have to trust the people to do the things that they're supposed to do, that you have them doing. And I'm currently doing that now. I do have a lot of, a lot of people that I hire to handle the bulk stuff of the websites, for example, and then I come in and do my overview. Running the social media management and stuff like that. I look it over. But I trust that they're doing a good job, and I don't want to. You have to encourage, I think, mostly constructive criticism instead of just straight criticism. That's another lesson I learned. So there's a lot. I want to take a lot of the responsibility of that failure. It wasn't just her, because in the past I was saying, oh, she's this and she that. No. In hindsight, it was a lot of me.
Yeah, and a lot of that is that that concept of extreme ownership. I think is that the Jocko Willink book.
That makes a lot of sense.
It on my bookshelf back there, I think. Yep. Doesn't matter. Find it later. Google it. But yeah, the idea of you can always blame other people, but taking responsibility for your part in it and taking ownership of it.
Yep.
Is that's can be humbling. And especially us guys with our egos, but to be able to do that, because obviously, I guess I would say, what's the biggest lesson you learned in that?
I think I just said it. Yeah,
on your personal relationship too, right? And I don't know how much of that you want to share, but the business ran it. Now, how long was the cake business around?
4 or 5 years.
So 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And the first couple of years, it wasn't like most businesses.
Oh, it was fun in the first couple of years. And then work started kind of like weighing. And then all of a sudden I'm looking at bills not getting paid. I'm like, and it got bad.
Okay. So it got bad in the fact that, were you not passionate about the business and growing it and seeing it through? Or did the stress of not being profitable or not of just running the business, like you said, now you've got 2 young girls, you're still at the power plant, I guess, for at least some point of that. So, just burning the candle at both ends, like what do you think the biggest lesson you learned in all that was?
So just to talk a little bit about it, it was at the tail end, the biggest lesson that I learned, that one, I never want to bake another fucking cake ever.
Okay. Call my daughter, because that's her thing now, right? My daughter's into baking.
But no, the bigger lesson is because essentially, I don't want to say that was a direct cause, but it was a significant contributing factor to my divorce.
Okay.
And me and my ex-wife did not have the same work ethic mindset. And because that didn't match, I got frustrated. And because I was frustrated with her giving her shit on stuff that I should have understood a little bit better, she got frustrated with me and then it diminished. So the biggest lesson is never work with fucking family.
Yeah.
Don't ever do that.
Yeah.
Unless you really got the thing to it. But the biggest positive lesson that I learned was how to not only run a business, understand what's needed, but understand the failures and learn from my failures. That was a big thing because I was so egotistical. I'm gonna do it. It's gonna be successful. And I didn't take the lessons from the failures. That's different today.
Yeah.
That is one of the biggest lessons that I've learned is that it is okay to fail. It is okay to fall. It is not okay to not pick yourself up, dust off, and start moving forward again.
Yeah.
I think Rocky has a thing. Nothing hits harder than life. How does he put this? Nothing hits harder than life. Life is a son of a bitch and a mean, but it's not about how hard you can hit. It's how hard you can get hit and then pick yourself back up
Yeah.
and go. And I live by that today.
Yeah.
And no matter what, even today, I get knocked down. Everybody does. It's about you being confident and saying, okay, well, why did I get knocked down? Hold on, let me get this dust off. Okay, now I see why I got knocked down. I'm gonna not do that again. So basically, that's the biggest lesson that I learned.
Yeah. So basically, you learn to fail forward, which is
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Fail forward.
Yeah, because and I hear in my business, it's I will say Gary Keller, who the owner and founder of Keller Williams, that's been like I've seen so many presentations where he talks. You hear the stories. Colonel Sanders, took his recipe to 400 places before one said yes.
Yep.
And Ray Kroc started his business at 52. Whatever. Yeah. So embracing failure as like the sooner you fail, it's fail faster. The faster you fail, the faster you can have the opportunity to pick yourself back up and learn. And being afraid to fail is kind of being in one place, being stagnant and being in one place. That's a worse failure than trying something. Now you're going to, of course you want to take educated risks and you want to, look into things before you just jump in feet first. But at the same time, there is something to be said about taking action and doing something versus doing nothing. And the faster you fail, the faster you learn and you can fix things and figure things out. So, unfortunately, I think like you said, the human condition is, we have to learn the hard way sometimes. And you had a business that ran its course over 4 years. It affected your personal life. And moving forward, obviously, you're taking the lessons of that and learning from that and growing into this new business. So let's talk about that because we've been on for a little while. And
we have been. It was a good conversation. I'm having fun. Welcome, Neil. Thank you for joining the chat.
Yeah, I want to respect everyone's time here. But on a Monday, so anybody who's watching live, I don't have access to the controls that you have, but whoever's watching us live, thank you for watching. If you're watching this on a replay, however you're getting this, thank you for listening and watching. And we're going to wrap it up soon. But so let's talk a little bit about, as I get a sip of water here. So the business ultimately fails. Your marriage goes away.
Yeah.
So while I get my breath here, tell us about how Southington Digital Solutions started.
So as I said before, I started with Jack Perry and HQ giving me the opportunity to start the business and get the business kind of going. And then when the divorce happened, I realized my mind was going to some seriously dark places. And I was very, very, very depressed. Not to the point where, we get to the other parts of things. I don't want to mention on stream, but it was very, very dark. I was very depressed. So I said, you know what? Instead of being a basically, and this is the words I said, stop being a little bitch. Let's start leaning into something. Let's find something to do. So I started these small little projects around the house. It didn't fulfill me as much as I did. I said, you know what? I'm going to lean into this marketing thing. And then at that time, the plant, and it's so weird because I'm not a religious person, but there's a lot of God's will here. And the plant came up as closing. So, and they were going to close the plant in like 2 or 3 years or something when this all happened. So it was like divorce. Oh, guess what? You're going to lose your job in a couple of years. Yeah, good fucking luck. So I said, you know what? I'm going to lean into something because I want to set myself up here. So I started leaning into Southington Digital Solutions. I discovered what's called this so it essentially what's called a white label, and you kind of like buy into this co-op basically, and you pay into the platform, and you have these amazing people that are in this co-op that will do the things that you don't know how to do. And one of the things that I did is I slowly learned each piece, and it would take up my time during the divorce, by the way. It would take up my time and then fulfill me. Now I felt good. Then I built my first website, and I was like, oh my God, that was awesome. Wait, they paid me to do that? That was amazing. So then I just kept leaning more and more into it. And then that's what helped me get through the divorce, because you got to remember, I'm in and out of court too at this time too. So it was a lot. And then the plant finally closed. They hand me a severance that was going to take care of me for the rest of the year. And I just spent 8 hours a day learning everything I could possibly learn about marketing, sales. I followed and watched YouTube videos of all the greats and started to get my tactic. Then I started practicing my tactic. Then I found Dads in Business and realized that my tactic was more car salesman than it was relationship building. And that's when I started getting, meeting with, seeing Matt's post, seeing Brian's post. I hadn't had discovered Neil yet, but Neil was a big influence as well. And then I realized and started to understand that that I'm stop selling and start helping. And then once I made that shift, once I transformed my thought process on that changed everything for me, because now I'm in the relationship business. Now I'm in the helping business. Yeah. Now I'm in the problem solving business. And that is really what I really I understand that, because I have a massive amount of tech, knowledge about that stuff. And then that's what really helped me push forward, get better. Then I met, realizing coaches are necessary. I used to think coaches are bullshit. And then I met Neil, and he snapped me right out of it. Yeah. So, and I know you also hang with Neil too. And then anyway, I don't want to, be a massive promotion here, but that was the thing that propelled me to the place that I'm now. 6 months ago, not even last year, 6 months ago, this was not paying the bills. I was just the severance is gone. That's already used up. Everything's I pulled my 401k to keep me going. That's gone. But now today, I not only can pay my bills, but I'm actually putting a little bit aside. And I was like, okay, maybe that got to go back to the 401k. I can replace that or figure out another investment, because investments is where I want to live. I want to take the money that I build from here and invest it into the things that I want and have fun, and that I'm going to enjoy, not just to make money. I want to enjoy it. I want to enjoy life. The goal now, before I was like, oh, I want to build this massive business. My new goal is freedom. I want to be able to have the freedom to stop and hang out with my kids, to stop and go to their school things, and to have a weekend where I'm not thinking about, worrying about, or anything. And if I want to take them to breakfast, I could just go. Yeah. That is the current goal of myself. And I think Southington Digital Solutions helps me, but not only helps me create that vehicle. I think that the best part is that it also helps my clients create that vehicle to move forward, to grow their business. Some of them, their vehicles are established. They're on their way. Yeah. But I want to just, like, so if you see a car on the road, I want to push that like that. That's my job. And I do that and again, marketing is learning. Every day you're learning something new. AI changed the whole landscape of things. I read something recently that AI is not going to take your job, but the guy that's learning AI will take your job. That's a shout to Neil, because I think that was his thing.
Yeah. Yeah. AI, you can't get away from it. So as we're kind of wrapping up the podcast here, there's some threads throughout our conversation that I want to just touch on quickly, because if we're going back to your job, and I forget the job title, but where you're the liaison with the captains coming into shore,
Yep.
and you're building relationships. So, that experience, that life experience has really served you well now that, in your cake business and your current business of really learning customer service, and relationship management. So that's, I see that as that had to have had a big influence on you. And then, what your experience with the cake business, learning that it's more than just baking cakes, and where Southington Digital Solutions really is helpful. So in my, just using my business and how you've helped me is, I'm starting a business where I'm managing people's photos, and I'm learning all about how to do that. But you still have to have a website. You still have to have a calendar. You still have to have email marketing. You still have to have all these things in place. And so what I would say, so Southington Digital Solutions is like your one-stop shop for all of those things. Like you said, that co-op, that dashboard that you get that helps integrate all of those things.
Yep.
Because even I heard this about AI yesterday too, is the way people are using AI is to do the heavy lifting.
Yes.
Right. It's not about replacing what you do.
Not the end all be all.
Let the AI get you 90% of the way there.
Yep.
If you're, when I'm doing, when I'm editing a video and I need to move stuff around and quickly distill a 30-minute recording into bite-sized clips, ultimately I have to have the editorial control over what goes in the final product. But to go through a 30-minute transcript and to break it up and to make suggestions, that's where I'm finding AI really helps me. And again, doing the heavy lifting. But to your point, the human element is still there. There's still a a human, decision and that goes into the final product. I guess editorially is the word that's coming to mind about what to leave out, what to leave on the cutting room floor, what to
exactly.
Keep
and
in there.
The AI is never going to be able to put the soul or the love that you have or the person has into whatever content is being created, whatever control the AI is running, because there is a lot of options these days. AI content creation, AI automation control, AI email marketing, all that stuff can be automated. However, you still need to put your heart into it. You still need to put your soul into it. One of the phrases that I use a lot, an AI may be able to cook a cheeseburger, but it's never going to cook a cheeseburger as good as Bobby Flay. Yeah. And the reason why is because that love is missing. That the human emotion part is missing. Yeah. That little nuance that you as a entrepreneur, business owner, AI operator, whatever it is that you're doing, that part you still have to add and sprinkle in. But you're right, though. To your point, it does a lot of the heavy lifting. So you're going to get to your goals a lot faster. Just don't rely on it 100%.
Yeah, it's a tool that can help you with efficiency and in timing of everything, but ultimately it is just a tool. So so as we wrap up the Dads in Business podcast for Monday, the member spotlight,
the new title,
Glenn Murano of Southington Digital Solutions. How can people get in touch with you? And also one shout out to what the group Dads in Business has done for both your personal and your professional life. Send us off with how we can get in touch with you and a little bit about how Dads in Business has helped you. And we'll wrap up the podcast for the morning.
All right. So super easy. I always tell people 1 or 2 words for your URL, southingtondigital.com. Easy, southingtondigital.com. 860-384-7243. I'm not big on self-promotion, but I'll go ahead and go with it. But I do want to talk about the value in Dads in Business. I think that the network, the social aspect, the dads relying on dads, and the fact that I've seen this throughout the group is not every dad in the group is doing amazing. Some may not, and then that switches. And then what's so fantastic about this group, and I hope that we see so many more dads getting involved, joining the group, etc., is that we lean on each other. When I needed Bennett a few couple times, he was there. He listened to my rant. He helped me. He gave me the feedback I needed. That's what all this is about. There's people who anonymously ask for information because then maybe they don't want all their business on the group, and that the posting anonymously is an amazing way to sort of get the information, the emotional support, the the dad support, basically, because we all have the same mindset. Take care of our family and our kids, protect them, use our business skills and tools to do that. And that's what Dad's a Business is. And that is the value that I've gotten. I have friends, and I love my friends. However, I cannot connect with them because they're doing jobs. And that's what they want to do, and that's perfectly fine. But at the same time, when I go to your events, Bennett, and by the way, shout out to you, man. Those events are so much fun. I can't wait. Happy's coming up soon, right? November 15th.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Whether it's, you need business advice, sometimes you just need to go have a beer with somebody.
Exactly.
And so don't forget Thursday, November 14th. So
14th.
A week. Yep. So a week from this Thursday at Happy's Indoor Golf in Southington. Yep. Just go to Facebook, find the page. Don't forget, you do have to pre-register.
Yep. The cost is $35. This is nothing, but you get a lot for that $35.
All you can golf for 3 hours and some food. There'll be some apps and some hot stuff and some soft drinks, and then bring your own beer. And that's a week from Thursday on the 14th. And so let's wrap it up here on the Monday morning member spotlight on Dads and Business Podcast. You're doing a great job engineering the podcast and getting it out there. And thanks for everything you do and for helping me in my business and for being a good friend.
Oh yeah, you too, man. Like I said, there was moments where you were like right there for me. I mean, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone out there. Go make it happen.
We'll see you guys next Monday. Let me get